KaraokeBooks.
Pudd'nhead Wilson. Written by Mark Twain. Audiobook. Chapter 18. Roxana commands. Gratitude and treachery are merely the two extremities of the same procession. You have seen all of it that is worth staying for when the band and the gaudy officials have gone by. Pudd'nhead Wilson's calendar. Thanksgiving Day. Let us all give humble, hearty, and sincere thanks now, but the turkeys. In the island of Fiji they do not use turkeys, they use plumbers. It does not become you and me to sneer at Fiji. Pudd'nhead Wilson's calendar. The Friday after the election was a rainy one in St. Louis. It rained all day long, and rained hard, apparently trying its best to wash that soot-blackened town white, but of course not succeeding. Toward midnight Tom Driscoll arrived at his lodgings from the theater in the heavy downpour, and closed his umbrella and let himself in. But when he would have shut the door, he found that there was another person entering, doubtless another lodger. This person closed the door and tramped upstairs behind Tom. Tom found his door in the dark, and entered it, and turned up the gas. When he faced about, lightly whistling, he saw the back of a man. The man was closing and locking his door from him. His whistle faded out and he felt uneasy. The man turned around, a wreck of shabby old clothes, sodden with rain and all adrip, and showed a black face under an old slouch hat. Tom was frightened. He tried to order the man out, but the words refused to come, and the other man got the start. He said, in a low voice, "Keep still, I's yo, mother." Tom sunk in a heap on a chair, and gasped out, "It was mean of me, and base, I know it, but I meant it for the best, I did indeed, I can swear it." Roxana stood a while looking mutely down on him while he writhed in shame and went on incoherently babbling self-accusations mixed with pitiful attempts at explanation and palliation of his crime. Then she seated herself and took off her hat, and her unkempt masses of long brown hair tumbled down about her shoulders. "It warn't no fault o' yon dat ain't grey," she said sadly, noticing the hair. I know it. I'm a scoundrel. But I swear I meant it for the best. It was a mistake, of course, but I thought it was for the best, I truly did." Roxana began to cry softly, and presently words began to find their way out between her sobs. They were uttered lamentingly, rather than angrily. "Sella pussin' down de river. For de bez. I wouldn't treat a dog so. I is all broke down and en wore out now, and so I reckon it ain't in me to storm a ruin, no mo. Like I used to when I ooze trampled on en bust. I don't know, but maybe it's so. Leastways, I suffered so much dat mornin' seemed to come mo handy to me now den stormin'." These words should have touched Tom Driscoll, but if they did, that effect was obliterated by a stronger one. One which removed the heavy weight of fear which lay upon him, and gave his crushed spirit a most grateful rebound, and filled all his small soul with a deep sense of relief. But he kept prudently still, and ventured no comment. There was a voiceless interval of some duration now, in which no sounds were heard but the beating of the rain upon the panes, the sighing and complaining of the winds, and now and then a muffled sob from Roxana. The sobs became more and more infrequent, and at least ceased. Then the refugee began to talk again. "Shet down dat light a little. More yit. A pussin' dat is hunted don't like delight. Daw, dat'll do. I kin see wha you is, en dat's enough. I's gwine to tell you de tale, en cut it jes as short as I kin, en den I'll tell you what you's got to do. Dat man dat bought me ain't a bad man. He's good enough, as planters goes. En if he could, had his way I'd, been a house servant in his fambly en been comfortable. But his wife she was a Yank, and not right down good lookin', en she riz up agin me straight off. So den dey sent me out to de quarter, mongst de common fiel, Hans. Dat woman warn't satisfied even wid dat, but she worked up de overseer agin me. She ooze dat jealous en hateful. So de overseer he had me out befo. day in de monens en worked me de whole long day as day as any light to see by. En many's de lashons I got. 'Cause see I couldn't come up to de work o' de strongs. Dat overseer was a Yank too, out in New England, and anybody down south kin tell you what dat mean. Dey knows how to work a nigger to death, and dey knows how to whale 'em too. Whale 'em till dey backs is welted like a washboard. Long at fust my marster say de good word for me to de overseer, but dat, oo's bad for me, for de misties she find it out, and arter dat I just catched it at every turn. Dey warn't no mercy for me no mo. Tom's heart was fired, with fury against the planter's wife, and he said to himself, but for that meddlesome fool, everything would have gone all right. He added a deep and bitter curse against her. The expression of this sentiment was fiercely written in his face, and stood thus revealed to Roxana by a white glare of lightning which turned the somber dusk of the room into dazzling day at that moment. She was pleased and grateful. For did not that expression show that her child was capable of grieving for his mother's wrongs and of feeling resentment toward her persecutors? A thing which she had been doubting. But her flash of happiness was only a flash, and went out again and left her spirit dark. For she said to herself, he sole me down de river, he can't feel for a body long, dis'll pass and go. Then she took up her tale again. 'Bout 10 days ago I oo's sayin' to myself dat I couldn't loss many mo weeks I oo's so wore out wid de awful work and de lashons, and so downhearted and miserable. And I didn't care no mo, nother. Life warn't wuth nothin', to me, if I got to go on like dat. Well, when a body is in a frame o' mind like dat, what do a body care what a body do? Dey was a little sickly nigger wench 'bout 10-year-old dat oo's good to me, and hadn't no mammy, po, thing, and I loved her and she loved me. And she come out while I oo's workin' and she had a roasted tater, and tried to slip it to me, robbin' herself, you see, 'cause see she knowed de overseer didn't give me enough to eat. And he catched her at it, and giver her a lick across de back wid his stick, which oo's as thick as a broom handle, and she drop, screamin' on de ground, and squirmin' and wallerin' aroon, in de dust like a spider dat's got crippled. I couldn't stand it. All de hellfire dat oo's ever in my heart flame up, and I snatched de stick out'n his han, and laid him flat. He laid da moanin' and cussin', and all out of his head, you know, and de niggers oo's plumb scared to death. Dey gathered round him to heap him, and I jumped on his hoss and took out for de river as tight as I could go. I knowed what dey would do wid me. Soon as he got well he would start in and work me to death if marster let him. And if dey didn't do dat, they'd sell me furder down de river, and dat's de same thing. So I lowed to drown myself and git out o' my troubles. It oo's git in towards dark. I oo's at de river in 2 minutes. Den I see a canoe, and I says dey ain't no use to drown myself tell I got to. So I ties de hoss in de edge o' de timber and shove out down de river, keepin' in under de shelter o' de bluff bank and prayin' for de dark to shet down quick. I had a pow'ful good start, 'cause see de big house, oo's 3 mile back foam de river en ony de work mules to ride da on, en ony niggers ride 'em, en dey warn't gwine to hurry. Dey'd gimme all de chance dey could. Befo' a body could go to de house and back it would be long paw dark, and dey couldn't track de hoss and find out which way I went tell monin', and de niggers would tell 'em all de lies dey could 'bout it. Well, de dark come, and I went on a spinnin' down de river. I paddled moan 2 hours, den I warn't worried no mo, so I quit paddlin' and floated down de current, considerin' what I oo's gwine to do if I didn't have to drown myself. I made up some plans, and floated along, turnin' 'em over in my mind. Well, when it oo's a little paw midnight, as I reckoned, and I had come 15 or 20 mile, I see de lights o' a steamboat layin' at de bank, wa dey warn't no town and no woodyard, and putty soon I catched de shape o' de chimbley tops agin, de stars, and den good gracious me, I most jumped out o' my skin for joy. It oozed de gran mogul. I oozed chambermaid on her for 8 seasons in de Cincinnati and Orleans trade. I slid, long paw. Don't see nobody stirrin' now huh. Here am a hammerin' away in de engine room. Den I knowed what de matter was. Some o' de machineries broke. I got asho, below de boat and turned de canoe loose. Den I goes, long up, en dey, ooze jes one plank out, and I step board de boat. It ooze powerful hot, deckhands en roustabouts, ooze sprawled aroon, asleep on de forecastle, de second mate, Jim Bangs. He sot daw on de bits wid his head down, asleep. Kasi dat's de way de second mate stan, de captain's watch. En de ol' watchman, Billy Hatch, he ooze a noddin' on de companionway. En I knowed 'em all. En, lan, but dey did look good. I says to myself, I wished old Marster'd come along now and try to take me. Bless yo, heart, I's, 'mong Fryans, I is. So I tromped right along, 'mongst 'em, en went up on de beiler deck en, way back aft to de ladies' cabin guard, en sot down daw in de same cheer dat I'd sot in, mos, 100,000,000 times, I reckon. En it ooze just home agin, I tell you. In 'bout an hour I heard de ready bell jingle, en den de racket begin. Putty soon I hear de gong strike. Set her back on de outside, I says to myself. I reckon I knows dat music. I hear de gong agin. Come ahead on de inside, I says. Gong agin. Stop de outside. Gong agin. Come ahead on de outside. Now we's pinted for St. Louis, and I's outer de woods and ain't got to drown myself at all. I knowed de mogul ooze in de St. Louis trade now, you see. It oozes fair daylight when we passed our plantation, and I seed a gang o' niggers and white folks huntin' up and down de show. En troublin' deyselves a good deal 'bout me, but I warn't troublin' myself none 'bout dem. 'Bout dat time Sally Jackson. Dat used to be my second chambermaid en, ooze head chambermaid now, she come out on de guard, en, ooze pow'ful glad to see me, en so, ooze all de officers, en I tole 'em I'd got kidnapped en sold down de river, en dey made me up $20 en give it to me, en Sally she rigged me out wid good cloes, en when I got here I went straight to wha you used to was, en den I come to dis house, en dey say you's away but, 'spected back every day, so I didn't dast to go down de river to Dawson's, 'cause see I might miss you. Well, last Monday I ooze pass en by one o' dem places in 4th Street wha dey sticks up runaway nigger bills, en heaps to catch 'em, en I seed my marster. I mos flopped down on de ground, I felt so gone. He had his back to me, en ooze talkin' to de man en givin' him some bills. Nigger bills, I reckon, en I's de nigger. He's offerin' a reward, dat's it. Ain't I right, don't you reckon? Tom had been gradually sinking into a state of ghastly terror, and he said to himself, now, I'm lost, no matter what turn things take. This man has said to me that he thinks there was something suspicious about that sail. He said he had a letter from a passenger on the Grand Mogul saying that Roxy came here on that boat and that everybody on board knew all about the case. So he says that her coming here instead of flying to a free state looks bad for me, and that if I don't find her for him, and that pretty soon, he will make trouble for me. I never believed that story. I couldn't believe she would be so dead to all motherly instincts as to come here, knowing the risk she would run of getting me into irremediable trouble. And after all, here she is. And I stupidly swore I would help find her, thinking it was a perfectly safe thing to promise. If I venture to deliver her up, but how can I help myself? I've got to do that or pay the money, and where's the money to come from? Well, I should think that if he would swear to treat her kindly hereafter, and she says, herself, that he is a good man, and if he would swear to never allow her to be overworked, or ill-fed, or... A flash of lightning exposed Tom's pallid face, drawn and rigid with these worrying thoughts. Roxana spoke up sharply now, and there was apprehension in her voice. Turn up dat light. I want to see yo face better. Daw now, lemme look at you. Chambers, you's as white as yo shirt. Has you see dat man? Has he been to see you? Yes. When? Monday noon. Monday noon. Was he on my track? Well, he thought he was. That is, he hoped he was. This is the bill you saw. He took it out of his pocket. Read it to me. She was panting with excitement, and there was a dusky glow in her eyes that Tom could not translate with certainty, but there seemed to be something threatening about it. The handbill had the usual rude woodcut of a turbaned Negro woman running, with the customary bundle on a stick over her shoulder, and the heading in bold type, $100 reward. Tom read the bill aloud. At least the part that described Roxana and named the master and his St. Louis address and the address of the 4th Street agency. But he left out the item that applicants for the reward might also apply to Mr. Thomas Driscoll. Gimme de bill. Tom had folded it and was putting it in his pocket. He felt a chilly streak creeping down his back, but said as carelessly as he could. The bill? Why, it isn't any use to you, you can't read it. What do you want with it? Gimme de bill. Tom gave it to her, but with a reluctance which he could not entirely disguise. Did you read it all to me? Certainly I did. Hole up yo, han, and swa to it. Tom did it. Roxana put the bill carefully away in her pocket, with her eyes fixed upon Tom's face all the while. Then she said, Yo's lyin'. What would I want to lie about it for? I don't know, but you is. Dat's my opinion, anyways. But nemine bout dat. When I seed dat man I ooze dat scured dat I could scarcely wobble home. Den I give a nigger man $1 for dese cloes, and I ain't bein' in a house since, night ner day, till now. I blacked my face and laid hid in de cellar of a ol' house dat's burnt down, daytimes, and robbed de sugar hogsheads and grain sacks on de wharf, nights, to git somethin' to eat, and never dast to try to buy nothin', and I's, mos', starved. And I never dast to come near dis place till dis rainy night, when day ain't no people roun', scarcely. But tonight I been a stannin' in de dark alley ever sence night come, waitin' for you to go by. And here I is. She fell to thinking. Presently she said, You seed dat man at noon, last Monday? Yes. I seed him de middle o' dat arternoon. He hunted you up, didn't he? Yes. Did he give you de bill dat time? No, he hadn't got it printed yet. Roxana darted a suspicious glance at him. Did you heap him fix up de bill? Tom cursed himself for making that stupid blunder, and tried to rectify it by saying he remember now that it was at noon Monday that the man gave him the bill. Roxana said, You's lyin' agin, show. Then she straightened up and raised her finger. Now den. I's gwine to ask you a question, and I wants to know how you's gwine to git a roon, it. You knowed he, ooze arter me. And if you run off, stid o stayin' here to heap him, he no day, ooze somethin' wrong bout dis business, and den he would inquire bout you, and dat would take him to yo, uncle, and yo. Uncle would read de bill and see dat you been sellin' a free nigger down de river, and you know him, I reckon. He'd tur up de will and kick you outen de house. Now, den, you answer me dis question. Hain't you told dat man dat I would be show, to come here, and den you would fix it so he could set a trap and catch me? Tom recognized that neither lies nor arguments could help him any longer. He was in a vice, with the screw turned on, and out of it there was no budging. His face began to take on an ugly look, and presently he said, with a snarl, Well, what could I do? You see, yourself, that I was in his grip and couldn't get out. Roxy scorched him with a scornful gaze a while, then she said, What could you do? You could be Judas to yo, own mother to save yo, worthless hide. Would anybody believe it? No, a dog couldn't. You as de lowdownest orneriest hound dat was ever pupped into dis whirl, and I's 'sponsible for it. And she spat on him. He made no effort to resent this. Roxy reflected a moment, then she said, "Now I'll tell you what you's gwine to do. You's gwine to give dat man de money dat you's got laid up, and make him wait till you kin go to de judge and get de res and buy me free again." Thunder. What are you thinking of? Go and ask him for $300 and odd? What would I tell him I want it for, pray? Roxy's answer was delivered in a serene and level voice. "You'll tell him you sold me to pay yo gamblin' debts and dat you lied to me and was a villain, and dat I quires you to get dat money and buy me back again. Why, you've gone stark mad. He would tear the will to shreds in a minute, don't you know that?" "Yes, I does." "Then you don't believe I'm idiot enough to go to him, do you?" "I don't believe nothin' 'bout it. I knows you's a goin'. I knows it, 'cause see you knows dat if you don't raise dat money I'll go to him myself, and den he'll sell you down de river, and you kin see how you like it." Tom rose, trembling and excited, and there was an evil light in his eye. He strode to the door and said he must get out of this suffocating place for a moment and clear his brain in the fresh air so that he could determine what to do. The door wouldn't open. Roxy smiled grimly, and said, "I's got the key, honey, set down. You needn't clear up yo brain none to find out what you gwine to do. I knows what you's gwine to do." Tom sat down and began to pass his hands through his hair with a helpless and desperate air. Roxy said, "Is dat man in dis house?" Tom glanced up with a surprised expression, and asked, "What gave you such an idea? You done it. Gwine out to clear yo brain. In de fust place you ain't got none to clear, and in de second place yo ornery I told on you. You's de lowdownest hound dat ever, but I done told you dat befo. Now den, dis is Friday. You kin fix it up wid dat man, and tell him you's gwine away to get de res o de money, and dat you'll be back wid it next Tuesday, or maybe Wednesday. You understand?" Tom answered sullenly, "Yes. And when you gets de new bill o' sale dat sells me to my own self, take and send it in de mail to Mr. Pudd'nhead Wilson, and write on de back dat is to keep it till I come. You understand?" "Yes. Dat's all den. Take yo umbrella, and put on yo hat. Why? Becca see you's gwine to see me home to de wharf. You see dis knife? I's toted it a roon since de day I see dat man and bought dese cloes en it. If he catch me, I's gwine to kill myself wid it. Now start along, and go soft, and lead de way. And if you gives a sign in dis house, or if anybody comes up to you in de street, I's gwine to jam it right into you. Chambers, does you believe me when I says dat? It's no use to bother me with that question. I know your words good. Yes, it's different from yon. Shet de light out and move along. Here's de key." They were not followed. Tom trembled every time a late straggler brushed by them on the street, and half expected to feel the cold steel in his back. Roxy was right at his heels and always in reach. After tramping a mile they reached a wide vacancy on the deserted wharves, and in this dark and rainy desert they parted. As Tom trudged home his mind was full of dreary thoughts and wild plans, but at last he said to himself, wearily, "There is but the one way out. I must follow her plan. But with a variation. I will not ask for the money and ruin myself. I will rob the old skinflint."
KaraokeBooks.